Hello, everyone. Sorry, I apologize. I will be speaking English because I don't have Bahasa skills yet. But I have a presentation today that I will talk a little bit about innovation and a topic that I think is going to be very dear to all of Indonesians, which is congestion. So I wanted to talk today about how we can use innovative approaches to solve and reduce congestion, pollution, and parking costs in cities today, using the technology that we have in our own pockets already. Congestion is a big topic in Jakarta. It's a big topic in Indonesia as well as around the world, and it's something that the government is thinking about a lot. There's a lot of innovative approaches to reducing congestion in Indonesia. There's experiments with 3-in-1 policy, as well as even an odd license plates. But there's a lot more that we can do. Everyone in Indonesia, I'm sure, is used to sitting in the car every day. Jakarta is famous around the world for having some of the worst macet in the world. And according to Uber's data, which we can track, actually, we track trip durations around the world. Jakarta has the longest trip average in the whole world of 46 minutes. The average person, once you step into a car, you're sitting in there for 46 minutes. And when you add all that up, that adds up to about 20 days per year that you're sitting in the car waiting to get from home to work every single year. And that adds up to a lot of cost as well. If you think about all the people who are sitting in their cars every day in the congestion, that amounts to an economic cost of $5 billion every single year for Indonesia. And that problem is only increasing. Today, car ownership is growing by 10% year on year in Jakarta, but the road infrastructure is only growing by less than 1%. This means that eventually the amount of cars on the road will actually take up more space than there's actually roads. So this is a problem that we have to solve urgently. However, even then, that's really only 4% of the issue that we face, because the average car, you're actually sitting in it for only 4% of the day. The rest of the day, you're sitting in the office or hanging out with your friends, and 96% of the time, the car is sitting there empty. And innovation and technology is about utilizing that empty space to be more efficient, so we can use every car more efficiently and take more cars off the road. Indonesia is very keenly aware of the congestion issues, and as I said before, are investing a lot of thought and mental power into trying to figure out how to solve this problem, including experimenting with 3-in-1 and even odd licenses, and also investing billions of dollars into building infrastructure to help ease this congestion. But that's only going to scratch the surface of the problem. If we look at a city like Singapore, with a fairly well-developed infrastructure of public transit, even then, Uber plugs in very well with the existing infrastructure. And in fact, 29% of UberX trips in Singapore actually originate at an MRT station. And in more developed, even better public transit countries like Australia, 60% of UberX trips start or end at a public transit station. Today, there are over 1 billion cars on the road, and that number is growing very rapidly. In countries like China and India, they're adding tens of thousands of cars to the road every single day. And if this continues without a good solution, what we'll end up is we'll be sitting in a parking lot on the road, and we'll be sitting in congestion every day. But before you guys all get too sad and upset about having to go home today and sit in the congestion, I want to share a little bit about Uber and how it started. Our founders, Travis Kalanick and Garrett Camp, they didn't start out trying to solve the problem of congestion. In fact, that wasn't even on their mind when they started Uber 6 years ago. What they were thinking about was, how can I get from point A to point B easily and efficiently in my hometown? And they lived in San Francisco, and they said, how cool would it be if at the push of a button, I could summon a car? And this is what the first app looked like. The two of them were engineers. They built this application, and they have a button that says, pick me up, and a car shows up. And that was how Uber started. Next. Since then, Uber has grown a lot, and the app, as you can see, looks very different today. Today, there's a lot of more screens, a lot more features in the app. From the very outset, the first screen, when you request an Uber, you can see an estimate of how much the fare costs. When you're sitting in the Uber, you have a profile of the driver. You can see his face, his picture, his license plate, and you can also share all that information with your friends who don't have Uber. Even if they don't have Uber, they could open a link and see and track your trip the entire way. And finally, we try to use technology to make everything as transparent as possible. And in the last screen, you can actually rate the driver. In fact, we encourage everyone to rate every trip experience. This is how we maintain the quality of the platform. And when drivers are consistently getting, if drivers are consistently getting low ratings, we can spot it immediately, and we can ask them to come in for retraining, or even have the option to suspend them if they're getting too many complaints. Next. This has resulted in very incredible growth. People have adopted Uber much faster than Travis or Garrett ever expected. They didn't even start it thinking it was a business. It was just trying to solve a problem for themselves. But it has grown very significantly, and this is what Uber looks like in New York City in 2012. And if you go through the next 3 slides, you can see the growth over 2013, 2014, and 2015. And the coverage in New York has grown significantly, but what you'll see that is interesting is actually a lot of the coverage extends out to the more outer areas of New York, which is covered less so by public transportation and less so by taxis. So it's serving underserved areas of New York City. Today, Uber has grown to 400 plus cities around the world, and we hit a big milestone December last year, which was our 1 billionth trip around the world. How did Uber grow so fast? One of the things that we discovered early in our days was that transportation is something that people spend a lot of their monthly income on. It's a big portion of their expenses, and therefore price is very important. And we want to approach making rides as affordable as possible for riders. And what we found was the more affordable the ride, the more demand there was for transportation. Next. But the challenge that we faced was that as a technology platform, your market is actually two-sided, and we have more than one customer. Our customer isn't just the rider, it's also the drivers, and it's also the city. And when you provide riders with lower prices and you want to maintain the same quality of safety and reliability, then you might wonder, how does the driver make money? And that's where technology comes in. And drivers, as our customer, we have to make sure that we're able to provide them with good income opportunities and also help them to create a lot more new income opportunities in every country we go to. And so we invest a lot of money in technology into making this happen. This is a prediction toolkit. It's something that our engineers have built for us, and it shows demand over time. When we can track demand over time, on the next slide, we can track demand over a certain amount of space, we can make and help drivers be very efficient. We can share this information with drivers, and that means when a driver is on the road, he knows where to drive and when to come onto the road so he can make more money. And this is working for us. This is a chart showing 4 years of drivers, over the course of 4 years, what driver earnings look like in New York City. In 2012, a driver is only having a paying passenger in his car, on average, for 16 minutes out of every hour. And as you can see, every year, our system is getting better and more efficient at putting passengers into the car for the driver. So the driver, when he is driving, is not wasting his time on the road. And by the year 2015, you can see we've gotten up to 31 minutes. That means that every hour the driver is on the road, he actually has a physical passenger in his car for 31 minutes, and he's getting paid for all that time. Now, that's not good enough for us, and we want to make that better. Ideally, if a driver turns on the Uber app, he will actually have a paying passenger in the car for 100% of his time. But that's obviously going to be a very difficult challenge for us. So one of the features that we've developed to help drivers become more efficient is a feature that I like to call forward request. What we've seen in a lot of cities is when you are going somewhere as a passenger, there's a pretty good chance that there's someone else who wants to get a ride from where you're going. If you're getting dropped off at Grand Indonesia, there's almost a very, very good chance that someone is also trying to leave Grand Indonesia at the same time. And we were seeing all these requests and drop-offs happening, but they were going to different drivers. And one of the challenges of being a driver is between trips, you're sitting there waiting for more passengers, and that's when you're not getting paid. If you're sitting with nobody in the car, you're not making any money. So we thought, what if we could track when a driver is about to drop off someone, and we can match someone into his car right when he's dropping off someone, and he would have no downtime between trips. And that one innovation has helped drivers to make a lot more money. Over time, these cities start getting more and more trips, meaning more trips starting and more trips dropping off at the same time. And if you go to the next slide, please. We saw actually that not only, you might want to play the video.
Play the video, moment. Okay.
Not only were trips starting and dropping off at the same point, but there were actually multiple trips starting at the same point and also dropping off at the same point. So imagine at one time, 2 people are requesting Uber from Grand Indonesia, and they're both going to Pacific Place. Why not share a car? Instead of 2 or 3 people ordering separate cars or driving themselves down the same road and going the same direction, why not use technology to put 2 or 3 people into the same car and drive one car down the road? Next slide. And what happens is you actually start taking cars off the road. You have the same number of passengers going down the same route, but you have fewer cars doing that, meaning you've reduced congestion and you've also reduced pollution. Thanks. We call this product Uber Pool, and we've rolled it out in a couple of cities. Shanghai is one of our most successful ones. And you can see from this chart, which is on the right side is separate trips. This is before Uber Pool launched in Shanghai. All the bright colors are individual cars. The brighter the color, the more cars there are on the road. And you can see there's a lot of bright colors on the road. This is all UberX. On the left is Uber Pool. After we launched Uber Pool, you can see there's less bright colors. There's not fewer trips going on. There's not fewer riders. Actually, there's more riders in the city because the business has grown. But they're all sharing cars now. And there's actually fewer cars taking more people around town.
Next.
Today, 40% of all trips in San Francisco are Uber Pool trips. And because of how many pool trips are going on in a city like LA, we've actually saved 12 million kilometers off the road by matching people into the same car. And that's taken 1.4 thousand tons of CO2 out of the air. In China, it's another story. China is a huge market, and there's actually 15 million Uber Pool trips happening every month. Uber Pool is revolutionary. If you guys recall the 20 days that the average Indonesian spends in the car every single year, just going to and from work, if you can imagine a world with no congestion, where you get those 20 days back to spend with your family, friends, or loved ones, and that's something that we strive to do together. And we can do that simply by using the cars that we have on the road already today and the technology that we already have in our pockets. Thank you.